My own sister, the one who once clung to my hand begging me never to leave her, shoved me out of a helicopter. And my husband, he just stood there, arms crossed, watching me fall, all for a $5 million payout. They thought I was dead. They held my funeral, but I walked right into it. Hi, I'm Harper. Do you think betrayal like that ever truly ends? Or does it just wait, hidden in the people you trust most? Tell me, would you have survived this? Let me know where you're listening from, because this story isn't over yet. The cold in Aspen that morning was supposed to be a promise, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, today would be different. I stood by the helicopter, snowflakes melting on my jacket, my breath clouding in the crisp mountain air. I desperately wanted to believe this trip was a fresh start, not just another patch on a marriage already fraying at the seams. Rowan, my husband, his hands were steady as he fastened the harness around my waist. His smile, it was the same one he used on clients in our showroom, warm, polished, practiced. Happy anniversary, he said, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek. I tried to soak in the warmth, to feel it, but the wind was too sharp, too biting. Then there was Malice, my sister. Her perfume, strong enough to drown out the fresh pine, hit me as she hugged me tightly. You deserve this day, Harper, she whispered, her words warm. But her eyes, they shifted away too quickly as she stepped back. Her hair was perfect, her lipstick a deep, almost vampiric red, making her teeth look impossibly white when she smiled for the camera she was already holding up. The blades began to turn, a deafening chop in the air, pulling at the curls I hadn't bothered to tame. I climbed in, settled into the seat, and glanced back as Malice and Rowan slid in beside me. Their knees brushed. Their smiles were aimed everywhere but at me. The pilot gave a thumbs up, and with a shudder, we lifted off. There's something about seeing the world from above that always made me believe in possibilities. The trees below, dusted in white, the rivers like silver threads weaving through the landscape. I wanted to believe this was a step towards something better. Rowan's hand brushed mine on the seat, and for a second, just a second, I felt like maybe we could fix what was broken. But Malice glanced over her shoulder at me, and there was nothing warm in her eyes. Just a cold calculation. I turned away, focusing on the view, pretending I hadn't seen it. The helicopter banked left, giving us a sweeping panorama of the mountains. Malice lifted her phone, turning it toward Rowan and me. Smile for the family, Harper, she said, her voice bright. Too bright. She leaned in closer, angling the camera, her hair brushing against my cheek. I tried to smile, but Rowan's face was a mask, unreadable. His eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. My stomach tightened. It was a hollow performance, forcing the corners of my mouth up. The engine's hum was a steady beat in my chest, masking the frantic thudding of my heart. Malice moved closer, far closer than she needed to for a photo. Her phone dropped to her side, her lips near my ear. You've always been in the way, she whispered. It took a full second for those words to land, for me to process the Arctic coldness in her voice. Then her hand pressed against my shoulder. I saw Rowan, arms crossed, leaning back, his face utterly blank. He didn't move. He didn't even flinch. I wanted to scream, but the wind tore it from my throat as Malice shoved, and the world tilted violently. I saw her red lipstick curve into a small, satisfied smile as I fell backward. The white of the snow and sky swallowed me whole. I tumbled. The helicopter's roar turned into a dull thump, 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 matching the sheer panic in my chest. The air was razor-sharp against my skin, my hair whipping across my face as I plummeted. Time fractured. A memory flashed, my mother's hands braiding my hair before my first day of school. Then the warm glow of the open sign at the shop I built from nothing. Rowan's voice, a ghost in my mind, whispering, "Trust me, Harper. We're in this together." Trust. What a beautiful, deadly lie. Branches blurred below me. An instinct screamed louder than fear. I reached, praying, hoping, clawing at the air until my fingers scraped against a thick branch. Pain exploded through my arm as I caught it, the force wrenching my shoulder, something snapping, hot and bright. But I stopped falling. I hung there, gasping, pain lancing through every breath as the world finally went silent. Only the soft rasp of snow falling from the branches above. The helicopter was a mere dot in the sky now, carrying away the people who had decided my life was worth $5 million. I pulled myself closer to the trunk, every movement a wave of agony. My vision blurred as blood dripped from a cut on my temple. I didn't cry. There was no room for tears. Only breath, only the desperate will to survive. Snow soaked into my jeans, numbing the pain in my legs as I leaned my head back against the rough bark, closing my eyes for a moment, letting the cold crawl over me like a blanket. I wanted to sleep, to let it all fade, but the words came out, soft, raw, a promise to no one but myself. Not today. I closed my eyes, letting the cold numb the pain. Before the realization hit, I had to move. It wasn't bravery, not really. It was a quiet, stubborn voice reminding me that lying here would let them win. And that was unacceptable. The snow around me was stained pink, blood seeping through. I forced myself to take inventory. My breath fogged in the air as I pulled in small, sharp gulps. My right leg, it was bent wrong, a bolt of pain shooting up whenever I tried to shift. My shoulder hung low, useless, but still connected. My fingers trembled as I pressed them to the ground, searching for something solid. My mother's words echoed, the ones she used when the world felt too heavy. You don't get to quit, Harper. Slowly, inch by excruciating inch, I pushed myself up. The icy ground bit into my palms. The cold seared the cuts on my face, shocking every nerve that wanted to shut down. I spotted a fallen branch, thick enough to hold my weight, just within reach. Rolling onto my side, I pulled it toward me, ignoring the tears that blurred my vision. It wasn't crying, not really. It was pain leaking out. I pressed the branch into the snow, testing its strength, then forced myself to stand, leaning my full weight onto it as a makeshift crutch. The bone in my leg screamed, but I ground my teeth and moved anyway. One step, then another. The world was too bright, the snow reflecting the cruel sunlight, burning into my eyes. But I kept moving, focusing on the sound of the crunch beneath my boot with each staggered step. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes. Pain twisted time until all I knew was the next step and the next breath. The wind sliced through my jacket, cutting to the sweat that chilled on my back. I told myself to keep moving. If I stopped, I'd never get up again. That's what Malice and Rowan were counting on, wasn't it? A shape appeared in the distance, low and half swallowed by a snowdrift. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, a trick of the cold. But as I limped closer, it sharpened into a small trapper's cabin. Its windows were crusted with frost, the porch buried under layers of snow. I dragged myself forward, every breath a ragged growl, until I reached the door, hammering on it with the last of my strength. No one answered. I tried the knob. Unlocked. The door creaked open to a gust of warmer air inside. The cabin smelled of old wood and stale smoke, but it was shelter. I stumbled in, the door falling shut behind me, and dropped to my knees, shaking uncontrollably. My eyes scanned the room, finding a wood stove in the corner, a stack of blankets, and, blessedly, a dusty first aid kit on a shelf. I crawled over, dragging the kit toward me, pulling out bandages with trembling hands. As I wrapped my leg and tied a makeshift sling around my shoulder, memories flickered, unbidden, warm and then sharp. Malice as a child, curling against me during storms, whispering, "Don't leave me, Harper. Promise you won't leave me." Her tiny fingers gripping mine, her eyes wide with fear. She used to be afraid of thunder. I used to hold her until she fell asleep. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my hands to keep working. That same girl, the one who used to beg me to stay, had just tried to throw me out of her way permanently. The sting of that betrayal burned deeper, far deeper than any of my physical wounds. A crackle broke the silence. I turned my head toward an old radio on the shelf. Its red light blinked, static hissed, then a voice cut through, rough and clipped. "Woman presumed dead. body unrecovered, presumed fatal fall near the ridge. My name followed, clear and heavy in the stale air of that cabin. They had already filed me as gone, erased me as easily as crossing out a line on a page. I forced myself to stand, wobbling toward the old rotary phone on the counter. The screen flickered alive, showing a weather app, a cold front moving in over Aspen. Then, a notification popped up. A bank alert. Transaction pending. I knew that number. The $5 million policy we'd paid into for years. They had already filed the insurance claim. Rowan and Malice weren't even waiting for my body to be found. A laugh, dry and sharp, escaped me before turning into a cough that rattled my ribs. My tears had dried up, leaving my eyes aching and raw. They think I'm dead, I whispered to the empty room, gripping the edge of the counter for balance. Let them think that. I pulled a heavy trapper's coat from the peg near the door, the smell of pine and old smoke settling around me like armor. My mind cleared. The fear was replaced with something colder, sharper. I would not go back to them broken and begging. I would go back ready. Vera's voice came to me then, clear as if she stood beside me. Call me if the world burns. Harper. Vera. My old partner. She knew how to fight the kind of battles that didn't leave bruises on the skin, but shredded everything else. I needed to get to her, to someone who would believe me before Rowan and Malice could bury me for good. I found a pair of old ranger boots by the door, stiff but usable. I wrapped my wounds tighter, shoved my feet into the boots, and pulled the coat around me, bracing as I opened the door again. The cold hit me like a slap, but I let it. I let it strip away the fear, leaving only one thing: purpose. The cold bit into my cheeks as I stepped out, the snow crunching under those old boots, the wind scraping past like it had something to prove. I kept one hand on the makeshift crutch, the other pressing against my ribs where each breath felt like it was pulling me apart. But I moved, step by step, because stopping wasn't an option. I could almost hear my mother's voice, the way she used to say it when life was heavy. You can't quit, Harper. I don't know how many hours passed as I limped down the slope, the sky turning from steel gray to the bruised purple of early dawn. The cold wasn't as sharp now, more like a constant ache that reminded me I was still alive, despite everything they had done to make sure I wasn't. Every slip on the ice sent lightning through my leg, but I gritted my teeth and forced my weight back onto the branch, muttering promises under my breath that I would make them pay. The trees thinned, and ahead, I saw the glow of a sign buzzing above a small diner on the outskirts of town. My body screamed to collapse, to curl up in the snow and just die. But I kept going, dragging myself across the parking lot until I pushed through the door. The bell chimed, and every head in the place turned. A hush fell. People stared, taking in the sight of me, hair matted with frozen blood, clothes torn, my face raw from the wind and tears. A teenage waitress took a cautious step forward, her eyes wide. "Do you need help?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just moved past her, collapsing into a corner booth, the vinyl seat cold against my back. My breath came in short, ragged bursts as I scanned the room, looking for something, anything, to anchor myself. My eyes landed on a payphone near the bathrooms, its metal surface scratched and dented from years of use. This was the kind of place where people didn't ask questions if you needed to use it. I reached into the pocket of the trapper's coat and pulled out a few coins I'd found, forcing my trembling fingers to slot them in. The dial tone. It was a lifeline. I punched in Vera's number from memory, leaning my forehead against the wall as it rang. "Vera." My voice was a rasp when she answered. "It's me." A pause. A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Papa." "Jesus. They said you were." "I know what they said." I cut her off. "Listen to me. I need help. Quiet help. I'm on my way." Her voice was steady, like it always had been. And for a moment, just a moment, I could breathe again. I hung up and turned just as the TV mounted in the corner switched to a local news segment. The words at the bottom of the screen made my stomach twist. Local CEO Harper Thorne missing, presumed dead in helicopter tragedy. I watched, frozen, as footage rolled. There was Rowan, standing at a podium, Malice beside him, her face buried in his shoulder as he wrapped an arm around her. They looked like grieving family, like victims of some cruel accident, not the executioners they truly were. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time, Rowan said into the microphone, his voice breaking in a way I had once thought was sincere. Malice lifted her head, mascara streaking down her cheeks, shaking as she clung to him. Behind them, the logo of my company stood tall. The company I built with years of sweat, while they pretended to mourn me. A sharp, dry laugh escaped me, turning into a cough. A man in the next booth shot me a glance before quickly looking away. I dug my nails into my palm, grounding myself. Let them cry their crocodile tears for the cameras. Let them think they had won. Not yet. By the way, if you're still on the edge of your seat, trust me, this story is only just beginning. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss how this all unfolds. The bell above the door jingled again, and Vera walked in, scanning the diner until her eyes found me. She crossed the room quickly, her coat still dusted with snow, and slid into the booth across from me. God, Harper, she breathed, reaching out. But I pulled back. I wasn't ready for comfort yet. I need to see the accounts, I said, my voice flat. She nodded, pulling out her laptop and connecting to the diner's Wi-Fi with practiced ease. We worked in silence, the low hum of conversation around us a distant background to the quiet clicking of keys as she accessed the company's emergency funds page. They moved everything, she whispered, turning the screen toward me. Transferred under your signature. A note left behind saying, in case of disappearance, funds will secure company continuity. My chest tightened, not from pain, but from the brutal realization of how thoroughly they had planned this. They weren't just stealing my life. They were making it look like I had given it to them willingly. Vera hesitated. There's more. They've started rumors. Harper. The media is hinting that you were unstable before the accident. They are framing you as paranoid, saying you talked about people being out to get you. They're setting the stage. I leaned back, letting the cruel reality sink in, letting the betrayal burn until it became fuel. They wanted the world to believe I was unwell, that I ran off, maybe even ended it myself. Vera closed the laptop, her eyes hard. What do you want to do? I clenched my fists until my knuckles went white. They think they've won. I met Vera's gaze, steady and unflinching. We're going to take everything back. And if they want a funeral, I'll give them one they'll never forget. As we gathered our things, preparing to leave the law office, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with a text from an unknown number. I know what they did. Meet me. I stared at the message, the world narrowing to the glow of that screen, knowing this could be an ally or a trap. I needed to face it. I locked eyes with Vera before stepping out of her apartment. The message still glowed on my phone. I didn't tell her the details, just that I needed to follow this lead. She wanted to come, but I shook my head, assuring her I'd call if things went sideways. The cold air bit into my skin as I walked the few blocks to the diner, the one with the neon sign, half-lit, buzzing against the quiet of the late hour. Sliding into a corner booth, I kept my back to the wall, my eyes tracking every shadow that moved past the foggy windows. The smell of burnt coffee and grease clung to the air, grounding me in the reality that I wasn't dead, wasn't done yet. I traced the rim of the chipped coffee mug in front of me, steadying my breathing. The door chimed. A man in a worn green jacket stepped in, scanning the room before his eyes landed on me. He moved with the caution of someone who'd been burned too many times. As he approached, I caught a slight limp in his step. He slid into the booth across from me, removing a knit cap to reveal messy hair and tired eyes. Name's Aaron, he said, his voice low, glancing around before leaning in. I know what Malice and your husband did to you. I didn't blink. How? He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw. I used to work for Malice. Hell, I was stupid enough to think I loved her. She used me, tossed me when she didn't need me anymore. But before she did, I kept copies of things. Things that would bane her to the ground if they ever saw daylight. I studied him, searching for the lie. Why now? Why me? His eyes dropped to the table, fingers picking at a crack in the formica. Because I've seen how she destroys people and walks away smiling. I thought I could ignore it, live with it. But when I saw your face on the news, when I heard what they said about you, I couldn't anymore. I didn't trust him, but I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to believe him because I needed something, anything, to turn the tide. He pulled a small key from his pocket, sliding it across to me. There's a storage unit 2 blocks from here. Everything's in there. Fake medical files, insurance forms, even emails between her and your husband about how they'd handle you. The word handle made me grip the key harder than I meant to. I slipped it into my pocket, eyes still locked on his. Why help me? Aaron, you know what she's capable of. He let out a hollow laugh. Yeah, I do. But maybe I'm done being a coward. I left some cash on the table and stood, feeling the weight of every eye in the diner on me as we stepped into the cold again. Vera met us a block away, her car idling under a streetlight, exhaust fogging up the icy air. We didn't speak much as we drove to the storage facility. The hum of the tires on wet pavement was the only sound between us. Inside the unit, the fluorescent lights flickered as I turned the key, pulling the metal door open with a screech. Boxes, neatly stacked, labeled with dates and names that made bile rise in my throat. Malice's handwriting was everywhere, her careful script mocking me from the labels. Files about my health, fake diagnoses, her plans to paint me as unstable to secure the payout. Vera's breath caught as she flipped through one of the folders. Harper, this is enough to bury them. I didn't get to answer. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a video call request. It was her. Malice. I hit accept, holding the phone at arm's length as her face filled the screen, calm and composed in a way that made my skin crawl. Well, look at you, she purred, tilting her head. Digging around where you shouldn't be. You know where I am? I asked, my voice steady, even as my pulse thundered. She smirked, her eyes cold and unblinking. Of course I do. You think you've won something, Harper? You think you're clever? You've always been so fragile. It's adorable that you think you can fight me. You tried to kill me. Her smile didn't falter. Careful what you say. I still have friends in high places. And if you even think about going public with any of that, she nodded toward the boxes behind me. I will make sure the world sees every dainty little secret you've tried to keep hidden. Do you really think they'd side with you once they know everything? The call ended before I could answer, leaving me staring at my reflection in the black screen. The cold of the unit seeped into my bones as the fear settled in, but I forced myself to breathe, to think. Back in the car, I felt the weight of it all pressing down, crushing me as I stared out the windshield into the darkness. Malice's voice echoed in my head, the memory of her pushing me, the air rushing past, the cold, the betrayal. She's still controlling everything, I whispered, my hands shaking as I pressed them to my eyes. Vera reached over, gripping my hand firmly. She's scared, Harper. That's why she's lashing out. She knows you're alive, and she knows you're coming for her. I let out a shaky breath, wiping the tears from my cheeks, letting the anger burn away the fear. I turned to Vera, my voice calm. Then let her be scared. It's my turn now. We drove back to Vera's, the boxes locked in the trunk, the silence between us no longer heavy, but charged, alive with purpose. As we parked, I glanced back at the storage unit key in my hand, then at Vera. I need to open that locker again, I said, my voice quiet but certain. There's one file in there that will either free me or destroy everything I have left. I stepped out of Vera's car, gripping the folder against my chest. The cold Denver air sliced across my face like a sharp reminder that I was still alive, still fighting. Snow crunched under my boots as I made my way toward the courthouse building, each breath a cloud that dissolved into the morning light. This was it. No more hiding. No more being pushed around by people who thought they could decide when I was worth keeping alive. Inside, the hallway smelled of stale coffee and cleaning chemicals. Vera walked beside me, her hand brushing mine for a moment before she let go, letting me take the lead. We passed through security, the guard giving me a curious glance as I placed the folder on the conveyor belt. I met his gaze without flinching. In a private conference room near the courthouse, they waited. Malice sat with her perfect posture, her hair pinned back, feigning concern. My husband was there, 2. Pretending grief so well I almost believed him. But the quick flash of fear in his eyes when he saw me sent a thrill down my spine. There were a few others. His lawyer, a family friend who had always believed the worst about me, and another woman who kept checking her phone as if she wanted to be anywhere else. I closed the door behind me, the click loud enough to turn every head in the room. I didn't bother to sit down. I let the folder drop onto the table, the sound sharp in the stillness. "Harper," my husband started, standing up like he was about to embrace me, like we were in some reunion movie. I held up a hand. "Don't." His mouth opened and closed, and he sat back down, his eyes darting toward Malice, who had gone pale before her lips curled into that familiar, condescending smile. "Well," she said, folding her hands. "Look who decided to show up. We were so worried about you." I ignored her, opening the folder and spreading the documents across the table. Pages of emails, bank transfers, insurance claims, and copies of fake medical records. Their crimes, laid bare in black and white, undeniable. "This is what you did," I said, my voice calm, even as my pulse thundered. "This is who you are." Malice laughed, the sound hollow. "Papa, really? This is embarrassing. You've always had these episodes. We tried to help you, but you just won't let us, will you?" She glanced around the room, as if seeking agreement. "She's unstable," she said to the others, her tone laced with pity. "She's always been unstable." I looked her dead in the eyes, letting the silence drag until she finally looked away. "You whispered, 'You've always been in the way,' before you pushed me out of that helicopter. You didn't think I'd live to say it back to your face, did you?" The air seemed to disappear from the room. Even my husband wouldn't look at me now, staring down at the table, his hands clenched into fists. "You don't have proof of any of this," Malice snapped, her composure finally cracking. But outside, Vera and Aaron were working. I knew it. I could feel it in the way my phone buzzed in my pocket. Message after message lighting up the screen. While Malice kept talking, Vera was posting portions of the evidence online, tagging local news stations, community groups, and every person who had ever believed Malice's lies. "Your lies aren't going to work anymore," I said quietly. Malice's phone vibrated. Then again, and again. She looked down, her eyes widening as she scrolled, her face draining of color. The room filled with the soft chiming of notifications, one phone after another lighting up. My husband's lawyer cleared his throat, glancing at him, then at Malice, before turning his gaze to me with something that almost looked like respect. The family friend who had always hated me shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Malice's hand shook as she clutched her phone, her eyes darting around like a cornered animal. "You think this is over?" she hissed, standing so quickly her chair toppled behind her. I stepped closer, my voice steady. "No, it's just beginning." She glared at me, her jaw working, but she couldn't find the words. For once, she had nothing to spin, nothing to hide behind. I picked up the folder, gathering the pages slowly, carefully, making sure she saw that I was in control now, that I wasn't afraid of her anymore. As I stepped outside into the biting air, the cold didn't feel like punishment this time. It felt like freedom, crisp and clean, washing away the fear and the years of letting them decide who I was allowed to be. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it immediately. For the first time in a long time, I felt the ground solid under my feet. The air in my lungs was mine to breathe. I knew the fight wasn't over yet, but I was ready. As I pushed through the courthouse doors, the cold morning air hit me, sharp and real, grounding me for what was ahead. A crowd had formed. Reporters jostling, cameras flashing, people with their phones raised, streaming every second of my walk into the daylight. I held the folder against my chest, inhaling deeply, reminding myself why I had to keep going, why I couldn't let them silence me again. The murmurs grew louder as I stepped forward. I caught fragments. "Is that her? She's alive. What's happening?" My hand trembled for a second before I clenched them, steadying my breath. This was bigger than me now. It was about every person who had ever been pushed aside, told they were nothing, who was forced to smile while people like Malice and Rowan stole everything. Just as I began to find my rhythm, Phones started buzzing around me, notifications lighting up screens, faces turning toward each other with confusion. Vera was at my side, her phone in hand, her eyes scanning the headlines that began to flood in. "Papa," she said softly. "They are trying to spin it." Malice had moved fast. News alerts popped up showing fake documents with my forged signature, claiming I had siphoned company money into private accounts. Headlines accused me of being unstable, a fraud, a woman who had faked her own death to cover her crimes. My name was trending, but for all the wrong reasons. For a heartbeat, the fear I had fought so hard to bury clawed back up, cold and familiar. The fear of being unheard, of losing everything again, of watching them take what was mine while smiling in my face. I looked down, my reflection wavering in a puddle at my feet, and saw the woman they had tried to make me. Broken, silent, easy to erase. "Are you ready?" Vera whispered beside me. I looked up at her, at the people who were waiting, at the cameras that were still recording. I pulled my phone from my pocket, gripping it so tightly my knuckles burned. "Yeah," I said, lifting my head. "I'm ready." We moved to the steps, the crowd parting as we stepped forward. Vera connected my phone to the small portable projector we had prepared, the image flickering onto the side of the courthouse wall. People turned, eyes wide as the video started to play. There was Malice, laughing over a glass of wine, her voice slurring as she leaned into the camera. "She's always been in the way," she said, clinking her glass with Rowan. She never saw it coming. All it took was a push. Easy money. Their faces were clear, the words unmistakable. The truth laid bare for everyone to see. A collective gasp rolled through the crowd. Phones were raised, capturing every second, broadcasting live. Some people covered their mouths. Others shouted in disbelief, the ripple of realization spreading like wildfire. I saw people looking at their screens, at me, then back at the video. I could see them understanding. From the edge of the crowd, I saw Malice's people trying to push through, yelling for the video to be taken down, for people to stop recording. But it was too late. It was already everywhere. Suddenly, Malice was there, her face red, her eyes wild as she lunged at me, screaming, "You ruined everything." Her voice cracked, raw with rage, her carefully crafted image shattering with every step she took toward me. Security moved fast, pulling her back as she kicked and screamed, her threats cutting through the cold air. "I will destroy you," she shrieked. "You think you've won." I stood still. The chaos around me slowed into a quiet tunnel as I watched her struggle, her powers slipping away. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel fear. I just felt free. Voices started chanting my name. People clapping. Some reaching out to touch my shoulder as they passed. Tays stung at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. I raised my head, letting the truth settle around us, the Denver air crisp and biting, washing away the weight I had carried for too long. As the security team led Malice away, a reporter stepped forward, her microphone shaking slightly as she called out, "Harper, what's next for you now that the truth is out?" I stopped, turning to look at her, then at the people around us, their faces filled with hope, curiosity, disbelief. A small, tired smile pulled at my lips. "Now," I said, my voice steady, clear, carrying over the crowd. "I live." For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I opened my eyes to quiet. The city skyline blinked back at me through the window, the early light of Denver washing the buildings in a soft, forgiving glow. I sat up slowly, the sheets pulling warm air with them, and wrapped my hands around the coffee Vera had left on the nightstand before heading into her early meeting. The steam curled up toward my face as I breathed in, letting it fill the places inside me that had felt empty for too long. I let my mind drift, the quiet punctuated by the hum of the heater. I remembered the day Malice first held my hand. We were just girls, standing at the edge of our parents' divorce. Malice, clutching a paper crane I had folded for her, whispering, "Don't leave me." That memory hurt in a way nothing else could, because she had left me first, again and again, until the final betrayal that nearly took my life. The pain wasn't just from betrayal. It was the echo of family turned stranger, of love weaponized. I set the coffee down and picked up my phone, scrolling through the flood of messages. Some were hateful, calling me a liar, saying I deserved everything that had happened. Others were from strangers who shared their own stories of betrayal, of getting back up when the world wanted them to stay down. I deleted the threats, blocked the numbers, and set the phone aside. My hand found the folder with the final papers Vera had prepared. I signed each page, regaining full control of my company, every stroke of the pen like a breath of clean air. Later that morning, Vera came back, her hair pulled into a low bun, a tired smile on her face as she handed me another cup of coffee. We sat in her small kitchen, the city alive beyond the window, cars and people moving with the promise of another day. Will you ever forgive her? Vera asked softly, her eyes searching mine as she sipped from her mug. I felt tears threaten, but blinked them back, my throat tight as I shook my head. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe forgiveness isn't about her. Maybe it's about letting myself move forward. Vera reached over, squeezing my hand before letting go. The silence between us was warm, a soft reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. In the afternoon, I walked to the community center I had helped build quietly years ago, a place for women starting over, rebuilding after the storms in their lives. I moved among them, unnoticed, watching laughter, quiet conversations, small victories over paperwork and jobs found, and the bright colors the children wore as they played in the corner. It felt right to stand there and see these women finding themselves again, piece by piece. A small girl, no older than 6, with curly hair and big brown eyes, tugged at my coat. She held up a paper crane, its wings carefully folded, edges a little uneven. For hope, she said shyly, placing it in my hand before darting back to her mother. I closed my eyes for a moment, the paper soft in my palm, remembering the day I had made a crane from malice, telling her the same word, hope. The circle wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Walking back through the city as the sun began to set, I felt each step like a promise to myself. Trust might never fully return, and some wounds would take longer to heal than others. But I was alive. I was free, and I was strong enough to keep moving forward without fear of being silenced again. I stopped by the quiet edge of a small park, pulling out my phone, turning the camera toward myself. My reflection stared back, older, wiser, still carrying the shadows of what I had survived, but with a light in my eyes that had been missing for too long. Have you ever survived something like this? I asked softly, letting my words settle in the stillness. Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. I ended the recording, slipping the phone into my pocket as I turned toward the bright lights of the street ahead. The air was cold, but it was fresh, and I let it fill my lungs as I took another step, then another, each one lighter than the last. And for the first time, I didn't need their approval to feel alive.